Hey there, Emma here. If that is not glaringly obvious, I am going to take you on a tour today of all of my art, basically. So I've got some high school, even a little bit of primary school art I can show you here. We won't spend much time on that though, because that was when I was a kid and there's no watercolor in here, but I thought I'd just show you a couple of things anyway. And then I actually didn't do art again from ages 15 to about 27. And we'll go through the progression from when I was an adult. But let's take a quick look at some of this and then we'll jump into the watercolor stuff. All right, so I found this from primary school. Obviously this is just like whatever. I don't even know what this is, glue. But I thought it was just funny because like this little collection here that I'm going to show you, it really sums up who I am. Like nothing really changes. I still love foxes. They're my favorite animal and have been since grade 5 and 6. So there you go. Not only that, obviously always been a pretty big chocolate milk fan. Drawing here a big M in year 8, very funny. I'm definitely a Nesquik girl and I always was, but you know, I guess that wasn't as exciting to draw. Then we've got some calligraphy here from year 9 and I remember as an adult starting calligraphy just thinking I was an absolute pro as a kid. Like I only have one example, so I don't know how much of it I actually did. And you know, this isn't bad, but if you look, which you'll see soon, the calligraphy I ended up doing, like I never did this style again, and like it was different in my head when I went and pulled this out. I was like, oh, that was completely different, but there you go. And then here's some of the last art that I have from when I was in school before I stopped doing anything. And I just remember being so insanely proud of this. Like I loved doing this drawing on black paper so much that I was like, please, can I get a black paper visual diary? And I remember as well a special like kind of crayon or pastel or something that would make like these really white highlights. And I just know there's like 1,000 million products these days that would do that even better. But yeah, I just remember being super proud of this. I'm pretty sure I got, I think I smashed this. A+. So yeah, that was really cool. And I remember this was displayed in the hallway at high school. And then this was just a drawing that I did from a magazine. This is Gwen Stefani, obviously, what a queen. And this was all freehand, like I did not trace this. I didn't have anything like a light box or obviously a grid method. This is literally just notebook paper. This is from 2004 when I would have been in year 10, the same as that car drawing. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's pretty decent. Obviously it's like absolutely falling apart now. And yeah, this would have to be the last time that I've ever drew a person because I just have not been interested in doing portraits as an adult. So there you go. That's my child collection, but let's get into the adult art stuff now. Okay, so then we had a massive break between age like 15 to 27. And that's when I started to pick up art again. I was wanting to start my own business. Initially, I wanted to do greeting cards. So I was like, oh, I think I'll do calligraphy because I did calligraphy like once in school. And I had a kit that was like, just like a kit I would never recommend these days. But back then I was like, I was a calligrapher basically at age 15. So that was the idea, do some calligraphy and also like maybe a little bit of watercolor work for the design of the cards. And then, I don't know, learn how to use every Adobe program ever. So the first supplies I bought were a Winsor & Newton travel kit with some watercolors and a travel brush. And this is where we started. So this is not in any particular order, there's not much here, but all I could really do was silhouettes, you know, copy a silhouette I saw on like Pinterest or something. There's a fox one somewhere. That's the only piece of art I haven't found. And I've got a photo though somewhere, so I might insert it if I remember. Feathers, again, I was probably just copying stuff online. I know for a fact that this was a tutorial. It's probably on YouTube. And then just painted a couple little simple little things, but no real idea what I was doing here. I didn't watch, like besides that, I didn't watch any tutorials on like how to use watercolor. I was just having a go, but I wasn't very like thrilled with what I was doing. And I started to see videos online of using a brush to create calligraphy, and that's when we enter the calligraphy era. So I'm not going to show you everything in great detail because this is more about watercolor, but I have in here just a collection of some lettering work. I've thrown out so much over the years just because like, how do you have the space, honestly? But this in no particular order is just some of my calligraphy work. This would be my like towards the end of my pointed pen where I think I was pretty good. That's definitely later on in the piece, whereas that was sort of early on. So definitely see a change there. And that was with my paintbrush. And, you know, I was doing everything with this brush. I created my, that's early, created my original logo for the old business name I had using my brush. Had that for years. Here's some watercolor mixed with lettering. Nothing very exciting though in terms of like, this is literally printer paper, okay? We know not to do that. But I just really, really remember this time in my life. It was the end of 2015 and I remember like hanging these up, like gluing them or sticky taping them to the mirrors on my wardrobe doors. And it's just like, oh, it's so crazy how long ago that is now. So a lot of stuff you see here these are the original Valentine's Day card designs. Like some of this is old, but I've also just kept like some nicer stuff as well. A lot of my practice I threw out. That was a mural I ended up doing because like I just didn't have the space to keep it. I've done like a lot of calligraphy workshops as well in the past. Like I went and studied with a master penman in Italy, which was so cool. This was a quote that ended up in a magazine. This is definitely some early pointed pen stuff where I really had no idea what I was doing. Lots of drills. I'm pretty sure that's a quote from Robin Hood, the one with the fox. My God, I love that movie as a kid. If you scrolled back far enough on my Instagram, you would 100% find some of this stuff. This was from like the first ever sponsored post I did. It was from Officeworks. Love that. And if you've been around long enough, you'll remember, I'm sure it's in here somewhere, the Ecoline brush markers. I remember going in and having a little meeting at Officeworks with someone that worked for Royal Talens, and they were telling me how you can dip the pens in the tubs of ink. And this is like 2015, 2016, mind you. And I remember just being like, people are gonna freak the F out about this. And I went home and made a video immediately, and freak out they did. So you're welcome, everybody. Oh, here we go. This is amazing. This is one of the very first pieces of lettering, if not the very first that I did. So this has such nostalgia. And then check this out. That was like a year later, I think, or 6 months. And like this was all within about 18 months. And the progress was crazy, right? Like you do something often enough, you practice often enough, you'll see improvements so fast. These are little sketches I did for an installation, a chalk installation for Brita Water, which was super fun and very out of my comfort zone. No way. Okay, no, I take that back. This is my first lettering. So that was the name of my old business. And I took a brush lettering workshop in, I think, October or November or maybe it was a bit later, maybe December even, 2015. And that's where I learned that you could do calligraphy with a brush pen. So fun. Anyway, there's so much stuff here. Let's get into the paintings. So between 2015 and somewhere in 2017, I was pretty much exclusively focused on calligraphy and lettering. I signed a book deal in mid 2017. I quit my full-time corporate job back then, and I started to feel like I really wanted to revisit watercolor because I followed other watercolor artists and I loved just the look of it. And so what I've got here and my next lot of stuff, I don't really know the chronological order of it. This has kind of just been put in a folder called like patterns or something, but this all would have been around that same period. And I was really just trying to explore and understand watercolor. So there's a lot of patterns, a lot of swatches, and I also was running a magazine at the time. So many random things I've done. And I would use like a lot of these swatches and stuff or patterns for like the back cover or something like that. This was actually a little bit later, some of this stuff. I know this was like 2018, these little scraps of paper, but just really learning how to use watercolor basically. Like you just have to do a lot of experimentation. And I think a lot of newbies get really scared of wasting paper. And I get it, but like how else are you gonna learn? You have to try. This is from like 2019, I think. But I know this one was a back cover of one of the editions. I was just like, I traced a bunch of hexagons, and that's just Payne's Gray. And I just used buff titanium. You can like barely see it, and Payne's Gray. Beautiful. More patterns, more patterns. This is really cheap Kmart paper that I was trying. Like why I remember that, I don't know. Color swatches when I actually used other colors. Copying stuff offline and just trying to replicate it myself without instruction. Lettering, don't know what that was for. A party, obviously. This is actually a front cover of one of the magazines on metallic supplies or something like that, shiny supplies. There's cat fur just in everything that I own. Some of this is more recent. This is my brushes that I got made. So I was doing a bunch of swatches because I wanted to get a design UV printed on the handle, and I really wanted that. Like, I am so sad that we couldn't make that work. It just looked like crap. It wasn't printing properly. So we ended up doing the zebras. It's the exact same print. So cool. So some of that pattern stuff is intertwined with some of this stuff where I really tried giving watercolor a go. And so I'm mixing it here with some lettering, trying to paint like a little orca. So fun. And, oh no, wait, actually, sorry, I think that's printed. I think I was trying to print a design on watercolor paper because that's definitely not paint. That is. Anyway, I was trying to discover how to make prints of your own work and paint animals for like the first time. Just random experiments. There's some attempts at painting animals as well. Like, I look back at this and I remember feeling so proud when I did this, and like I look back and I'm like, it's very like it's cute, but like I look at where I am now and I'm like, this feels like worlds apart, which is really cool. I was trying to learn more about like making things look 3D, values. These are a little bit later in the piece. I think that one is too. That one's definitely, I think, the end of 2017. I think I had a Skillshare class on that. And that was the original bunny that I had a tutorial on, and there's a different one on my channel now. I think, again, that was 2017. That might have been 2018 Easter time, maybe? Trying some galaxies and planets, The Sims, my iPod. Trying to paint water and using like a crazy amount of white gouache. Like, that is so much. Rick and Morty, I think that was 2018. Oh my God, this is when I tried painting. This is when I tried painting my cat for the first time, okay? My cat Leo. I had no idea how to paint an animal, where to start, how to layer. Like, I'm trying to paint every stroke of fur, obviously getting very annoyed at myself. I'm gonna put this off to the side and like we'll get to the actual portrait I have of him now. But I much prefer the more simplistic ones at this point. I think this might be, this could be 2018, but I felt very comfortable with stuff like this where you're just like almost coloring in. Like, I just like traced the label off my Nesquik tin. Love Nesquik. And was just like copying it basically. More water, bauble, some little ice creams. I think they're really cute. My skills were very amateur at that point, but I was so proud of that. This is just the logo of my football team that I just copied essentially. This was a workshop I took with Priscilla in America, I believe. Yes, I was in America for something and I wanted to go learn with her. This was a commission. This might have been 2018. I can't remember. Oh no, I think it was 2017. And yeah, someone like a CEO of like a cleaning company here in Australia commissioned me to like paint this recipe. And this was just a practice one, or like I stuffed something up. I can't remember, but super cool. Another bauble, a logo of like a burger place I liked eating at. Watercolor. That was a little bit more advanced in my practice at that point, learning a little bit more about gradients. Another little moon type thing, and some shells using some iridescent medium from Winsor & Newton. Now, what's also important to note is during all of that time as well, I was learning about color theory and color mixing. And so this folder here is like what I've kept of color mixing activities over the time. Like, I distinctly remember doing these in 2017 because I launched my free color theory course at the start of 2018. And so I was trying to learn everything I could about colors, color mixing, color temperatures, color schemes. A lot of these paintings or like swatches are going to look familiar. They've appeared in, you know, mini courses, YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. I did a workshop with Winsor & Newton, or like an informal workshop with them at their headquarters in Sydney. Super fun. Just lots of mixing, understanding how colors work together. I loved this era of watercolor because this is when it all started to come together. Like, some of the work that I showed you in the last bundle, this is more recent, like I just wasn't happy with it and I wanted to get better, but I was feeling just very overwhelmed with the whole concept of watercolor. So I actually like remembered in primary school where you would use just the primary colors, and primary school is like elementary school, by the way. And so I did like a ton of experiments. I had so many paints at this point, like so many. And I just thought, I'm going to do a whole bunch of experiments mixing primaries. Let's see what I get. And I just became addicted to the possibilities. And this is just something I've never given up. I still just paint with the primaries and I absolutely love it. And it really made my whole watercolor game completely change, and everything just kind of clicked into place. So I've got other wheels and charts, but you know what they look like. So then things went crazy. So basically, after I launched that watercolor color theory course, people were like, what are we going to do next? And I was like, oh, okay. So I started releasing weekly or monthly themed classes with a new tutorial every week. And so I did this from like February 2018 until about mid 2019. So these are those classes. Let's take a look. This first one was called Sunsets and Night Skies, and there's just like multiple versions of each painting because I was still learning. Like, I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, I could never teach anyone art because like I don't have X amount of experience or whatever, blah, blah, blah. All you have to know is like one more tiny thing more than someone else to teach them. I mean, there is an art to teaching people, but like you don't have to have a degree. Then we did Galaxies. Love this class. I distinctly remember just splashing gouache all over my living room trying to film this. It was so fun. Oh, look at that. And then we did like florals. I think it was foliage and florals was the next one. So like I'm still learning as I'm going here. I'm trying to keep like one step ahead of all my students. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I've got to get something else out. There's a combination of stuff in here that is going to be from the second installment I did of foliage and floral. So I don't know the difference. You'll probably be able to tell based on the skill level of it all. But there's just so much. I actually hate painting flowers. I absolutely hate painting florals. So never really got that good at it because I really wasn't that interested. The time I finally did get interested is when I was painting more realistically. And then I was like, oh yeah, I could get around this now. But loose florals, which I know so many people love, it just wasn't for me. I just couldn't really wrap my head around it. And then this is where a lot of things changed for me. I became obsessed with the idea of painting realistic water, and I still love painting that to this day. We just had so many like little water droplet activities, learning about how you highlight and shade something. That always reminded me of, what's it called? Oh my God, just my hair is everywhere. Is it a plumbus or something from Rick and Morty? Splashes. So fun. And then after, this didn't go that well. I don't know if I'm missing a bunch of practice in here, but then I've tried painting my parents' dog. And I was so proud of this. Like, obviously now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, look at just like all the fur added on at the last minute around the ears and whatever. But I remember painting this and just being like, oh my God, like I can make something look like a thing. This was the first real time. The water kind of, but especially a dog that like, yeah, I know in real life, I was just like, oh my God, I'm so excited by this. And so we actually did this whole unit in 2018 called Doggies, watercolor doggies. And by the end of the month, I had a dog. I had my dog. I was so excited. Like, it obviously changed a lot of things in my life, but it just was all happening around this time. So this never became a proper tutorial because this was my just practicing painting. Like, look how massive her nostrils are. Anyway, this is just a practice. This was part of it. This was a student's dog, an Aussie Shepherd. This was the tutorial. This was a tutorial back then. I'm really not proud of this. Like, how did I go from such a happy looking dog to this miserable, grumpy... That's not in a school anymore. This one was, but I've since redone that. Little Rottweiler puppy. This little Westie as well, but I've since redone that too. And then we also had savannah animals, and like, look at how dark this elephant is. Like, the one that's in the academy now is so much nicer, I think. But like, no judgment on my past self. Like, I was so proud when I was painting this because I was just like, I don't know, so many things were clicking into place. Like, the the soft blending of the colors and like just shading something. Even though I went absolutely overkill on the shading, I was getting somewhere. And that's still a massive struggle to me all these years later, is trying not to go so deep on all the colors and the values. Like, you don't have to achieve absolute realism. You can let the watercolor shine through, and I wasn't doing that in the beginning. This is my lion. I know I've got a scrap one in here, and you know what really hurt my feelings? I was so proud. That was the first one. I was so proud of this painting, and I remember sharing it in a group, and someone was like, your lion has a massive hole in its head. And I was just like, shut up. I think I deleted my post. I was like, no, my feelings are hurt. But I look back at this and I'm like, they were absolutely correct. Like, there's a lot going on, and even though that's what the reference photo looked like it looked like a lot of hair sprouting out, it was probably my first real run-in with, you know, you can make something look like a photo, but it's not going to translate well to a painting. And that's absolutely what happened here. Plus, you know, so much just texture and heaviness. And same here, I've got a couple of versions of this leopard, I think, as well as the giraffe. And I've since got another leopard, which I didn't even do that one that great. And I'm currently trying to redo as well. But I was really proud of this one as well. I thought like, oh my God, that tongue is so realistic, which, you know, back then for me it was, but I can just, yeah, I can see now how much things have changed. I really like the eyes though. Oh, and I was just using so much actual black instead of mixing my own at that point. Giraffe, I really love this giraffe. I had a couple of versions, but I just wasn't really loving my background. It just like, I kept making everything look quite heavy on the edges. So I'm pretty sure that was the final tutorial. It's been redone now. And this one didn't make it in. So funnily enough, I painted this one before I painted that one. And the reason this one didn't go in is A, I didn't film it, and B, I only used, sorry, there's hair everywhere from me and the animals. Oh my God. I only used 2 colors. So I mixed the gray from burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I was just initially exploring all the different color mixes you get from those two. I definitely use like buff titanium in the tusks, I think, as well. Probably even some black, but for the elephant itself, I mixed that color from those two. And that was just not what I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach everything with the primary colors, so that one didn't make it in. But I'm very proud of this one still. I think I learned a lot in this initial one. If only I just kept it lighter for the actual tutorial. You know, the details that aren't everywhere, right? Like just a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit here, some little blooms on the forehead. You don't have to paint every last detail like that. And then we had some Christmas classes. I think we had a couple. I think this was like Christmas scenes. So I live in Australia. Obviously we have a hot Christmas. So beach scene, Santa flying over, a couple versions of that, little fireplace and tree. I love this painting still. I don't know which is the final one. I have no idea. I don't know which one made it in as the tutorial, but I love this. I love the little gold as well on the snow globe. Just so fun. And this kind of kickstarted my obsession with painting glass as well. I remember turning these into a tutorial about how to like vectorize or digitize your art. That's still a class that's in Paint Wild now. We had like all these Christmas elements and then the little Christmas characters. This may be the only person I've ever painted. Could be, but that wraps up 2018. So then we're into 2019 and I'm still doing individual classes at this point. And this one was Universe, Watercolor Universe. So we were painting planets, moons in different ways. Super fun. I think, is that from a different class? Oh no, I thought it was Galaxies, but it was from Universe. So that was a really fun one too, combining a moon with a galaxy. And then we did marine life. And I think this is where things truly like changed for me. I just remember posting this whale, and I don't know which one. I've painted it a few times, but I posted a whale on Instagram, and just the feedback I got, people were just like, oh my God, I thought that was a photo, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ooh, I love making this reaction in other people. So we had the whale. These are classes that are still in Paint Wild today. We've got the dolphin. I don't know which seahorse made it in. I can't remember. I think that was my first one and I didn't like it. Maybe that was my second. Maybe that was the final one, but can you see, like I made such a boo-boo there. And this was a game changer as well, the sea turtle. I got such a good response from that. So this is the tutorial that I still have in there to this day. And I was still doing other classes though. So we had light and fog. And I was really excited by this concept as well, like creating light and creating the effect of fog using watercolor techniques. So, you know, like lifting off in certain directions for the lighthouse, using glazing to create different values in the trees to help determine whether they're closer or far away. I have so many versions of this painting as well. The Golden Gate Bridge, I did this a few times. Love trying to create the fog with the soft background, super fun, and like fading out the bottom of the top of the bridge as well. So many versions of that. Again, this one, that was the one Rhodey got a hold of that. That's when she was in her cardboard chewing phase as a puppy. Another version of the lighthouse. Now this one, so this from Light and Fog was a bit of a game changer for me as an artist as well. I remember showing it to someone, one of the students who was like one of my ambassadors, and she was just like, there's something off about it. I think it's the black. So when I first painted this, I've like fixed it up a little bit now, but like this is just a black color, right? Then all this iron was also painted black. I later went back when she said it was too much to try and lighten it with like gouache and something. So it doesn't look as heavy as it did, but then I redid this painting and I really played up like the oranges and the yellows and a blue, like a bluey color there and a purpley color here because they're complementary of each other. And I just think this one pops so much more. And that really taught me a good lesson about staying away from pre-made black in paintings. Some more of the Foggy Forest. I think like these are probably the more recent ones. I think I did them a couple of years later again. And then I'm pretty sure this was the first class as the Watercolour Academy. So I basically turned what I'd done so far into a membership. You know, a lot of people had said to me that they buy the class when it first gets released and then they just hoard it and they don't take it. And I was like, oh, that's actually not the point of it. Like the point is that you take them, you know, as you go and you build that consistency and you build that skill. Like I don't like the idea that people are just kind of hiding them away and never getting around to them. Like someone had 6 that they haven't even started. And that's where the idea of a membership came in, so that it's more of a journey. And, you know, instead of paying for something once off and just hiding it, you are paying consistently, and that is like a bit of a motivator in itself. You're not just going to buy something, put it away. You know that if you don't keep paying, the membership ends and you don't have access. So it kind of like incentivizes you more to actually make the most of it while you're in it. And then I think this was like the first class, like Clouds and Skies Energy, because I look back at this and I'm like, some of these like I'm not very proud of, but at the time I thought I was really good. And I hope that I taught a lot of good things. Like this one here, you know, I just had to give things a go a few times and they turned out a little bit better. So please don't think that, you know, you're born as a great artist or you can't start doing this unless you're perfect. I was just trying to keep up with the demand of what people wanted me to create for them. And I would poll them on subjects and then I'd just try my best to teach them. This is where I fell in love with painting glass. So I've got a bigger version here of the same thing. I think we did this on a live stream just to like zoom in and look at details more. But I absolutely adored this class. Again, just really solidifying my love of realism at this point. Perfume bottle, light bulb, so fun. I think this one was like nature or something, like there was just different elements, trees, mountains, light sources, how to position things in a portrait. Bit of fun. Then we have cats. So this is another one of my early animal class and I do not like any of these. So heavy, so textury. So can you really see like how much texture I would put into my work? This is very like obvious that I was still new to painting animals because I was very reliant on that to make something look real. And so it really ended up with a lot of my portraits becoming quite heavy. And I do have a breakthrough moment sometime during 2019 with this. We've got a little orange cat. I quite like this one still, to be honest. Got this cat which looked a bit funky the first time and then I got it looking a bit cranky the second time. This one is in the Academy though. I still like this painting, but if I was to do it again, I would definitely use less texture. And then I think we had a holiday class or something. And so I absolutely love all of these paintings. Love that one. Love that one. Love these little Christmas elements. Love that tree. Like I adore, and this is where I started to realize I adore the wateriness and the flowiness of watercolor. So like, why am I drowning that out with texture and how can I stop doing that? Little wreath, some more trees. I think they were painted at this time, but I'm not entirely sure. I think we were just doodling with supplies on a live stream for that. And so this here, this also was a painting I did this year, and I'll put it to the side as well with my Leo. I really loved this, but it looked more like a dinosaur than a little alligator or a little crocodile. And I really loved it, but I was like, oh, it's quite heavy. And so let's put this to the side because I redo this in 2020. So 2020, pretty memorable year for like everyone who's more than 5 years old. And the way that this year started was there were really devastating bushfires in Australia. And I was like, I want to do something. There were like insane reports on the amount of animals that were being killed from the fires. And I just wanted, I wanted to do something to help. And I was like, why don't I create an Australian animals class and all the proceeds can go to charity? And so I whipped out these 4 tutorials in like a singular weekend. And I think like 500 people signed up. I think it was about $30. So we ended up raising like over $15,000. And one of she's still my student in the academy now, Jess, Art by Panza, she helped to turn these into digital prints and we sold some of them as well, with all proceeds going there. And it's probably like the coolest thing I've ever done. I'm so proud that we were able to do that. And I picked a wildlife charity, the Animal Rescue Collective, who are on the ground working with wildlife carers. And like, I know that that money got to where it needed to go immediately. So a very cool career highlight, and these are in the academy still. This one's pretty obvious what this one was all about, but that was just a social media post. And funnily enough, a way of life for me still. And then I think this is the bunny tutorial that's on YouTube now. I'm pretty sure it's this one. And we just kind of ventured out. These are from some live streams. So basically I would just pick other topics outside of the monthly ones and we would just have a go together. So ducks in the sky, little rose in water, little eggs in a nest for Easter, this flower basket, a macaw eye. This gives me nightmares still to this day, to be honest. This is one of my absolute favorite live streams we ever did, and this was painting paint swatches. So this was heavily inspired by the artist CJ Hendry, who is a pencil artist, and she had done drawings of paint swatches, and I was like, I want to paint swatches, and it was super fun. Again, just really turning up my love of realism was painting this foil balloon. I still love painting foil balloons to this day. I've done a bunch of them and I just adored this painting. A little butterfly in the live stream as well. And then actually, so this would be, I thought a dog that I painted green was my first introduction of painting things the wrong colors, but it would have to be this, the little eucalyptus leaf branch or whatever they are. And I adore this one. It was a really great lesson in values, and I did this around the time I moved into my current apartment. Like, it just really, you know how things just tie in with like a song or an emotion or a time in your life, and I can distinctly remember this time in my life. We also painted this at the end of 2020, a little metallic ball of like ribbon, and again, just shiny things. Oh, I love painting them. But these were the actual tutorials from the year. So we had fruit, and we had a realistic version and then a loose version of all of the same ones. Loved that one. Then we had nature. So we were painting like different elements. We're painting shells, trees and branches, exploring techniques for rocks, feathers. Then we had chocolate. Oh, I loved this. So we have the little popsicle. I think I painted that in 2019 and I wanted to make it into a class. So this one, it was a little bit heavy on, like, it looks so real. I'm looking at it on the camera and I'm like, oh my God, you painted that, freak. But you look up close in person, it's just a lot of white gouache. So I tried to pare it back a little bit here, but it does like look a little bit Jurassic Park egg rather than Easter egg. Like, it's a little too detailed probably. Then we have a bar of chocolate. I made some massive mistakes. You can see the white gouache there. And this is probably one of my favorite paintings ever. Ooh, I should put this to the side too so you can see my bunny from this year. But this is obviously like a lint Easter bunny. Adore it. Then we got into some more animals. So this one, you would have thought I learnt my lesson from the lamp about painting with black, but this was also painted with black. But I think because it's just a monochromatic painting, it's not that bad. But if I were to redo this tutorial, I would definitely not use my own. I would definitely not use a pre-made black. Maybe for the snout, like I love granulation in Mars Black, but the rest of it could definitely be mixed. And I'm gonna insert some very recent, as in like this week, portraits that my students have done of this zebra, where they use different colors than black, and I just adore them. We've got the rhino, again, pretty heavy on details and texture at this point in my journey. I absolutely love this cheetah. Again, though, I'm using black from a pan. And then you've got to see this. So it's not very often that I will literally rip something off the table and just throw it in the bin, but I really had made a mess of this one. I didn't go inside my lines. The fur was looking glued on and I just had to start from scratch. But I keep this to remind me that, like, you know, you just got to give things another go. You're not going to be perfect the first time every time. Then we did a textures class. This, I think, was the least popular class I've ever done, and it was one of my favorites. No one gave a crap about this class, but that's fine. I loved it. Wood texture, brick, and like whatever you call that. What do you call that? I forget the name of whatever that stuff is. Anyway, marble, and this was concrete, like, oh my God, whatever. I forget the name of everything ever, but I like this class. No one else really did. And then we did birds, and this was an extremely popular class. So penguins, fun fact, this is not from a real photo. If you find this on like Unsplash, it's like 2 toy penguins or something, but it was such a cute pose. I was like, let's just paint it anyway. The owl, I absolutely love the owl. I used some salt here for the texture. So fun. Love this flamingo as well, the soft blends of the colors along the neck. And just the contrast of the black beak. Love this painting. And the hummingbird with some iridescent medium from Winsor & Newton as well. Super cool effect. Then we kind of combined 2 other classes. Look at all this fur. And it was liquid and water. So we've got my paint jar here basically. We've got, I think that's supposed to be an iced coffee, wine, and droplets on a window. I loved all of those. They're still like liquid, painting water and painting glass, I still absolutely adore. And then we moved into reptiles and amphibians. So we've got the chameleon, and I think that was my first, oh no, I think I painted this like a million times and I hated every single one of them, but I settled on this one eventually. This is one I would like to redo, but they're still in the academy, as are all those birds. The tortoise, I still love this one. And here's the little crocodile. So here's the one I painted like a year before, and see how different I was able to go. Like, it's not so dark, and also being more selective with my highlights and just really giving it more of an airiness. I definitely think I would still probably do it differently today if I repainted this a couple years later to incorporate more elements that look like watercolor. But I think this is such a drastic improvement from that one. This one looks severely dehydrated. And then I still absolutely love this painting. The poison dart frog, such a fun one. A really cool texture of like making something look wet and smooth and then really textured where it's sitting on. I love the contrast. Then we did oceans, and I love this painting. If I remember, maybe I'll just insert a photo of the big one. I painted this A3 about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago because I absolutely adore this painting. It took me ages. Another one here. Love this painting. I think I went a bit overkill on all these like little details here, but still didn't really love this one, to be honest. It's okay, but I didn't quite get the reflection look I was after. Then we had mountains. Love this one. Love the texture of that one. Sunrise, like this one's okay. I realized at this point, I was like, I don't really like painting other things as much as I like painting animals, but we will persevere. Had a couple good months in a row here where we've got some flowers, realistic flowers, and I absolutely adored painting every single one of these. I'm definitely not a loose florals gal. And we had celebrations. So this, again, absolute standout for me. Adore, adore, adore. I think, did I do the ribbon one in this video? It should have been in the same year as this one, but I absolutely loved painting this bow. And we had some fireworks, and I think it was that one that made the final tutorial, not that one. I think that was an experiment gone wrong. Then we had the little firework. I love this one. And also the foil balloons. I turned this into a tutorial as well. And I'd also just painted other ones that year. So that year I turned 32. Here's another little rose. When I was a bit better at loose florals, but still they hurt my brain too much to figure out. I also did an experiment, I'm pretty sure it was this year, and it was like these half face animals. And this was the first one I did really small scale, and people really loved it. And I did too, but I only really did these two. It was gonna be a whole series. And then I was like, it actually hurts my brain to kind of like think about every time. But I really love the concept for the fox because they're my favorite animals. And I just feel like they have two, like, first of all, they're a cat and a dog mixed together. That's two sides. But I also think like they're so sweet and cute, but then they have such a bad reputation of being like sly and sneaky and like pests and everything. So I really love this concept for that. And then I just did it again with the tiger because why not? And I still love this painting, but I think the concept worked better with the fox. And I painted a loot llama from Fortnite because I love playing Fortnite, and yeah, I'm in my mid-30s, no one talk about it. And then we've got 2021. I'm going to start here with some of the stuff that was done on a live stream. We've got like a little tractor in the field. This was a little French bulldog I wanted to show. I still use this today for an example of like building depth and values, just using like painting monochromatically. So I love this painting. This is a tutorial that you'll see soon, but I wanted to recreate it on stream using masking fluid. It's not something I do often. I just find it too annoying. Sunny wheat field, playing with negative painting. Got a little feather sitting in some water. Love this thing. Like you could easily not be able to figure out what that is, but I love this painting. Different ways to paint coral. I've got this landscape again. Like I'm just not really feeling it. Like I really struggled to figure out landscape compositions. Got a peacock feather because we painted a peacock this year, I'm pretty sure. Got, I think, a negative, no, not a negative painting. Was it? Yeah, it was negative. A negative painting experiment, like, you know, nothing special, but it was more about layering and painting. Like this took forever because I painted around like every single one of these buildings a million times. This is one of my all-time favorite paintings, I think, and it has nothing to do with animals. I just love this jack-o'-lantern. I think it looks so sick and the colors just work amazing together as well. I distinctly remember doing this because I painted it on stream, this one, and then the recording didn't record. And I was like, oh my God, this was such a fun painting. Like there's no way I can't like have this for my students. So I immediately sat down and re-recorded it, but it was kind of good because I got to fix up a few things. Like I added another pumpkin down there. The owl's eyes had disappeared, so I fixed that. I think the moon looks better and I was better at like preserving some color around it. Yeah, so it worked out in the end. These are the actual tutorials. So we had boats. And I really liked this month. It was quite a challenge, but I really liked trying to paint water and make it look shiny. Then we had farm animals. So that was my first failed cow, and it turned out a lot better the next time. But I have a very fond memory of this month. It was February 2021. And just before starting this month, I had the realization that I wanted to change the online school and stop teaching everything and just focus on animals. And that's how we have Paint Wild today. So that actually didn't happen though. Like what prompted me to do that was I needed to change the name. The Watercolour Academy was a name that could not be legally protected because it was too descriptive. I'd known that basically since I launched it. Like a month after I launched it, I spoke to my lawyer and I was like, oh yeah, let's trademark this. And she's like, yeah, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, sick. So for that time between 2019 and 2021, I'd known in the back of my head, like this is gonna have to happen one day. I had some names planned and I ended up going with none of them because what had happened was I realized I needed to change things. I wanted to give myself and my students a year because people join up on an annual basis and I'm not gonna be like, oh, psych, I'm changing everything and you just paid for a year that you're locked into. I wanted everyone to have as much notice as possible. And, you know, the process of trademarking something takes like 9 months as well. And so I asked myself like, well, maybe I should think about what else I want to change. And I put out a survey to my members as well. And through that process, I was like, oh my God, every time I paint animals, it's the best month ever. I always look forward to the animal months. I'm always trying to squeeze more in. What if I just painted animals only? And it was the best thing I could have figured out. I can't believe I didn't work it out sooner. But the moment that clicked, I was like, I feel in such alignment. And then I just, you know, I had a new thing to consider when naming the academy. And I went with Paint Wild because I felt like it was still simple, easy to say, spell, remember, which was the problem I had originally before it was even the Watercolour Academy. I called it Paleticate, which was like palette plus etiquette. I don't know, I just had a thing with like combining names, but it was so silly and no one could spell it properly and it was just so long and weird to say. So that's why I did the Watercolour Academy really simply, but then that was way too descriptive and like I could do nothing about it. But Paint Wild was like the best of both worlds. And I also had what was the Watercolour Factory at that time, my handmade paint brand, and I wanted something that would encompass both. So I didn't want to be like, you know, Paint Wild School or whatever and like officially call it that, and Paint Wild just happened to cover both and also be like a motto as well. It's not just like paint wildly, paint wildlife, like paint wild. It feels like permission to do something. And I still love it to this day. But anyway, something major that came out of the survey was that my students felt like my tutorials were too rushed and I was actually hyperlapsing a lot of them. So when I realized I wanted to paint animals realistically and my students wanted real time, I was like, oh, there's absolutely no way I can keep doing 4 tutorials a month, one every week. Like that's so much. I'm gonna have to cut down. I had to, like, I broke my back this year in the animal classes doing them realistic so that I wouldn't have to repeat them the next year when it became Paint Wild. So I distinctly remember this month because this is when it was all changing and when I had to do the longer tutorials that were like an hour, hour and a half. And yeah, it was just a lot, but I was so excited for what the next year was gonna be about. And then we had some realistic leaves. I love this class as well. Don't like painting loose ones, but like painting realistic ones. Super duper fun. And then we had reflections. So that was a bit of a fun one as well. A bubble, that was so hard. Reflections in a lake. And then we had Marine Life 2.0. So we had a little otter, got our crab, got our jellyfish, I think that's the final one. I think this was my first edition. Got our little seal. So again, all realistic tutorials that I'm trying to squeeze out one every week. Then we did metal spoon. I loved painting these as well. It was really challenging and fun. Tried to be a bit looser with this one here. And then this is the first time I've ever painted any kind of like loose foliage and not absolutely hated it. So we had watercolor trees and we just had like different types of trees for each season and also some more realistic ones here. I must be missing some, or is that supposed to be winter? Maybe, I'm not sure. We had birds 2.0 as well. So we've got the pelican, the peacock, the toucan and the kingfisher. I adore all of these. Like I'm really proud of these still. We had a month on the negative painting technique. This was really fun. It's very time consuming, but I really enjoyed just giving it a go, even if it's not something that I really do that often. Then we had vegetables, and so we've got pumpkins, we've got, is that supposed to be a radish? I guess so. Carrots in 2 different forms, loose and a more realistic one, and onions, a bit random. We have waterfalls. These are probably like, these are some of the only landscape paintings of mine that I actually like. I really like this one. This one was a bit tricky and got a bit heavy. This one got a bit too textured. And same, that one is like hella textured, but it was fun. And then this was the last class of the Watercolor Academy as we know it, desserts. And I adore this painting. That one's kind of cute. Love the little donut. And the macarons as well. And then what I launched Paint Wild with was this little workshop on reindeer where you could learn to paint a normal reindeer and a red-nosed reindeer. And between that transition, I repeated a few tutorials. So this was redoing the Aussie dog tutorial. This was redoing the Westie. That was redoing the Roddy. And I redid the lion with the hole in its head and the elephant and the giraffe. And then we officially became Paint Wild. And I think this year, 2022, I probably turned out some of my best work ever. I really like all the portraits that I was doing this year. So we had our tiger to start with. We had our little cockatoo, our orca, a simple one, but I love this. Our goat, panda. I love being able to like add in something else as well. Like whenever we can put a bit of water or wood or some kind of texture, I think it just like, it adds something to it. It's really cool. And not using black anymore, you'd be pleased to see. And I don't think I did, I don't for the beak either, that was mixed. And I'm pretty sure I mixed my own color there. Maybe I was just absolutely awesome at it because that looks like a pre-made black. Then this was the first wild card where my students could pick what we paint, and I hate this painting. I think it's so ugly, and I don't know whether it was me or the subject, but this is probably one I'd redo in future. Then we have our little bunny, and as much as I like this one, there's something about it that just, it doesn't feel like I feel like I could have done something a little bit differently or more with this one. Like its eyes are really cute, but I think it's just like so pale on the edges that it could have benefited from maybe something else. I don't know. We have our little chick, pufferfish, fox, my favorite, llama, hedgehog. I think this was another wild card. I love this one. Polar bear. I think I want to do this one again in future as well. The reference photo did show it looking quite orange and dirty, but I don't really think it was something that translated well to a portrait. So I'm probably going to redo that one in future. We have a coyote, a badger, Nemo, clownfish. This was another wild card, the octopus. Love this one. Like such heavy colors, but I think it was a subject that really called for it. And I said to my students in the tutorial, like you could definitely use ultramarine blue in this and it would be like the perfect color to make it really pop. Have a little bee, a little duck, again, being able to paint some water in there as well. This was my first edition of the panther and then I redid it here. So, you know, I still sometimes like it just doesn't translate or work out well the first time I do something. Very heavy here in the chest and I wanted to add like a little bit more just blooms or something to make it look watercolory. And I didn't quite like the expression I got. I thought I could make it look a little bit more mad. We have the bats, wolf, they were around Halloween time, turkey around Thanksgiving, not that that's a thing here. Raccoon is probably one of my favorite paintings to date as well. So cute, the little eyes and nose. Moose, I love this part of the painting. But I'm not a massive fan of the bottom part and how it's kind of sitting in the grass. I think I could have done a lot better there at kind of making that all blend in together, but I did want the soft grass. So it was kind of like, what do I do? I think I'd consider doing that differently if I did it again. And then the cardinal, adore this one, so cute. And then we had a bunch of live streams. So I remember starting the year with this live stream, which was basically teaching you about values and that you don't need to get the colors right to make something look realistic. This is a Gouldian finch, which is very bright and colorful. And this was kind of like going the opposite way and taking something normal colored and painting it with rainbow colors. And I ended up teaching this as a workshop to a group of vets and vet nurses that year. Then we've got some little swans making a love heart. That was for Valentine's Day. Bats flying through the sky. That was for Halloween. This was some coral up close. Why not? Animal adjacent topics. Cat eyes, cat paws. I love these. I painted that one first. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever painted. And then I painted this one. I'm like, no, this is the coolest thing. Like something about this one just made it look like art. I don't know. Love it. I remember painting this zebra as well. And this was to just experiment with black watercolor paper basically. And I really enjoyed it. It was very mind bending to try and do the reverse of the zebra I've painted previously, but a very fun thing to try. This was a green alien dog, an experiment about painting with the wrong colors. So I thought it was this that kicked off my obsession, but it was apparently that sprig of leaves, but this was super cool. And then I had this painting week where I was going live every single day and just painting and people could join me for like a painting sprint. And this was the penguins that I painted. I love this. This is the image for our community in Paint Wild now. I painted this like dog collar or something or other up close. Little balloon animal. I really thought I was going to do better at this one than I did, but I painted it super heavy, which was my mistake. I've been so used to painting foil balloons, but these weren't foil balloons. So that was interesting. I painted my dog at some point. So this is Rhodey. I painted her earlier in this year. And that was because I think I was going to do pet portrait commissions for a little while. And I did. And I just wanted to like, you know, this is what I can do. This is my dog. And this is what her painting looks like. And it looks the same. But I didn't really do that many after that. Like, I think that was the only year I did them. But that was super fun. Took me so long. And this was Leo. So let's appreciate how far I've come with painting cats and animals because, oh my goodness. Yeah, so I hope this encourages someone because I always knew like if I tried hard enough and kept at it, I'm sure I could figure it out. Like it wasn't an unattainable idea in my mind, but when I look back, it's astonishing where I started. And I hope that that does give some of you that maybe don't feel confident about your ability to reach the end goal, like realize that we all start somewhere and you've got to keep, like if this volume of work is anything to show you, you just got to keep painting. And this was the leopard that I redid, except this literally took me 2.5 hours and I've been procrastinating redoing this ever since because it like traumatized me how long it took. I messed something up so dramatically, but this will be a tutorial in Paint Wild eventually. I just need to do it again and faster. This was a Christmas card design I did for an ultrasonography business. So really cool painting. I've seen people paint ultrasounds before and I was like, I want to put a Christmas decoration in there. Like how sick is that? And then another little colorful dog when I was really down the rabbit hole of painting things the wrong color. That brings us to 2023 and the start of the tutorials. We had the lemur. For some reason, like whenever I want something wet on wet, like this big bushy tail, it never turns out the way that it is in my mind. Like I really struggle getting the depth and I feel like I have to do so many layers to build it. That's just, I don't know, a personal struggle of mine. but I think this painting is really cute. And again, I like the wood. We had the eagle. I really like this painting as well. Very bold and like strong. I really liked the kind of like personality or attitude that this one conveyed. This is probably, with no surprise, like my favorite painting ever. I use this on everything and I just adore it. Like it's just, I love big cats. They're so cute. And this is a really good example of where I didn't go too dark with everything. Like I really managed the values quite well. It's probably like a little under detailed in places like the ears, but I just absolutely love it. We've got a cute little butterfly, a little wombat, koi fish. I really liked this before I added the background. So if I was to do this again, I reckon I'd consider masking off the fish. I painted the fish first and then the background. And I think that that just always makes it a bit hard when you've got to come in around so many little edges and manage them all. And you're adding more water and stuff. And all it's doing is like butting up against the edges and creating harsh lines. I think it might have worked a lot better if I had just left it without a background or masked them out completely so that I could just wash straight over them without like managing all these edges. It might have looked a bit lighter. Little red panda, adore that one. German Shepherd, I really went in again with the values on this one. It was funnily enough the paw that made me come unstuck, and I just felt like I wasn't getting that right, and I ended up just making everything else like a lot darker than initially planned, but I do still really love this painting. We've got our little gecko. So I was really trying here to be quite conscious of making things lighter, and I was like, all right, well maybe let's not like define the edges of the body so much and like blur it up here, blur it out under here. And I do really like it. I think I managed to achieve that quite well. It didn't go so well with the pig, like I kind of like blurred further out than I intended. And again, like when I'm doing wet on wet, I just really struggle to get that depth that I need in that first layer, that I then just feel the need to have to go back and add to it on other layers. So that's just something I'm still working on. We have a little capybara. That was the absolute animal of the year last year. So funny. We've got some really cute budgies. A bobcat. I messed up something with the values on this one as well and like had to go back and touch up some of these dark areas a few times. Like it's still a really cool painting, but yeah, very like, it feels very like just heavy. We've got our little lionfish. Absolutely love that one. We've got a little, oh my gosh, I forget the name. Impala. Cocker Spaniel puppy. I really adore this one as well. I think the challenge of making the fur look shiny on the face was so interesting and challenging. And then, you know, having this contrast of this bright ball, it was really difficult, but it's so fun. A little gorilla, and it doesn't look like I've mixed my own color for it, but I did. I used a pre-made black for the eyes, so hopefully you can actually see the difference between those two. We've got a little quokka, an Australian animal, ladybug, super shiny, a little beaver, very interesting. Like when I tell you I struggled to find a reference photo of a beaver that I had to like, I can't remember if I even paid for this one. Like to find something with the whole thing and its tail, very difficult. And I tried to just like have fun with the colors of this one. A little heavy though. This one, I used that wet on wet technique and I really like the outcome of the British Shorthair, but I just had the trouble of like it running away a little bit. So I could obviously like trim down the edges of this painting to clean that up a tad, but that was my main problem, is like, oh my God, it was running away. And you know what I did with this painting that I don't think I did with any of those others, was I used a big brush to wet the whole thing down and also to like drag the color back towards the cat, because when you're doing like a secondary wet on wet layer, it starts to reactivate and kind of travel a little bit. So I found myself kind of sweeping it back in, and it was a lot easier to do that with a big brush than a tiny little one. Great white shark. This is another example of where I really loved it until I added the water. I really just had the same troubles of like butting up against the edges. I'd love to redo this one in future as well, and maybe even not do the water at all, like just have maybe a little splash here or there. What trapped me was I'd already painted the reflection at the top, so I felt kind of like stuck to finish it off, but I think maybe next time I just add a few splashes on the side and leave it at that. Got a little axolotl that was voted by students, a very cute one, a lot lighter and kind of like looser and fun. Green tree snake, I absolutely love this one. Probably gotten a bit of a habit here of going a bit too dark again, but that's okay. Little guinea pig, used the background to create the dark values, so I think that helped me balance out the rest of the portrait with this one. And a little donkey here, which I think is super cute, but again, a little bit dark, but I had such a plain background that it felt necessary. And then these are our live streams we had last year. So we did a few eye master classes. What did we have here? We had a horse, so we're exploring like a different shaped pupil. This was a dog and this was a cat, and we painted it. What was the difference? This was using white gouache for the highlights and this was negatively painting around it. I don't think we used masking fluid. I think it was negative painting. And then we've got here an octopus eye, a fish eye, and I don't remember what that was. A snake, maybe? Yeah, I think by the shape of the pupil it's a snake. I don't know, maybe. This is from a masterclass about the eagle and doing some little sketches first, like a value study sketch and then a colour and value study sketch. And I think that really did help me with that final piece. I don't do this every time, but I definitely noticed when I did do it that it just had a positive effect because you've effectively painted it already. And like each time I did something different, like I had this really dark background here and I was like, oh, I don't actually like that. So I left that change in the background color off because I felt like it was just interfering too much with the little shoulders. So it was fun. Then we did some reflections, painting some zebras drinking from water. I really love this painting. It was very cool to do and like very fun to try and use the shapes of the stripes to create curvature in the body and on the legs as well, and the head with the little diamond. I think we freehand sketched the butterfly from that tutorial and that was what they were from. Then we had some nose masterclasses. So we had some kitty noses and dog noses, just looking at them all from different angles. So all of these live streams as well, I keep as replays in the Academy so people can go back and watch them from the start of 2022, which is cool. We did some loose ladybugs. This was a really fun activity. You would have seen from the color theory folder of stuff that I have that I used to do this with the primary colors. So this was a fun change of that. We did a little spooky cat arching its back in front of the moon for Halloween. A painterly style cat. I wanted to explore using like a non-watercolor painting technique for a watercolor portrait and it was really fun. So using like a flat brush instead, like a squared off brush. It was challenging and a different way to add values and highlights and shadows to your painting, but I really liked it. And then we did a little snoozing dog under a Christmas tree. So this was like the, I forget how to pronounce it, bokeh effect, B-O-K-E-H. And I think I used all gouache for this. So like if you turn this over and held this up to the light, like you can probably already see through it here. It makes, like it's quite thick and heavy. But we ended up finding like a little cheat video not long after this that showed someone getting like, you know those plastic tools for maths or whatever, and they have different shaped circles in them. They would put that over their work and then like use a brush to run in the inside of that circle shape and then like dab off and lift off the paint that way to create this effect. And I was like, damn, that's really smart. I wish I saw this video 2 weeks ago. And then we did a little robin in a winter wonderland. I really like this painting a lot. I wanted to replicate that Christmas one that I showed you from a couple of years earlier, and it was just super fun. And then these are just some other things I painted throughout the year. This was 35 for my birthday. And then I had a 5 as well, celebrating going into the 5th year of the Academy. And then we had a couple different versions of the budgies. I was trying to paint like something, like loose and quick or something, like do it in a really short amount of time. That was the first one. I did that freehand. And as you can see, it got a bit wonky. So I was like, yeah, there's a reason why we stick to a sketch. So this one was done with the sketch, but then just like really quickly, I think. And then I did the tutorial. And then this one was using, I think, the squared off brushes to try and loosen up or change a style. So similar to that painterly cat, I really wanted to explore something a little bit different and use a different shaped brush. So that was pretty interesting as well. And then that brings us to this year, which we are only partway through. So it's not a huge stack here, but we had this little activity. I had this as a tutorial on YouTube, so you can check that one out if you want to learn to paint that. And this was just like the comparison of like when you paint without taking values into consideration, but just color. And you can see how this one looks so much more three-dimensional, even though it is in one color. Got a little Arctic fox, and I really struggled with that one the first time. I've shared this in a video before, but oh my God, it was just so cold and so purple and so dark. And it was really good to like redo that one and adjust the color of the shadows. I still think I could probably do another version even better, but I just really love the color scheme and the purple in it that I wanted to give it a go. It just took me more than one go to get something that I liked. And we've got the mandrill. I really, really love this painting. I didn't think that I would because I thought it would be spooky and scary, but I would say this is a really good example of when I've managed to get that soft finish edge, but like still have it look realistic. And I think it might have to do with just the shape of the animal and like how all the colorful detailed bits are on the face, so that this was like less important. But yeah, really love this one. And again, just like trying to change up my style a little bit and do something kind of looser. Obviously I've painted quite a few big cats at this point. I didn't want something so heavy again, you know, like the panther or anything. So tried this with the cougar. I used quite a bit of Mars Black actually in the painting, which I don't normally do, but I wanted that granulation to shine through. So I actually mixed a lot of Mars Black in with even just the fur color, as well as adding it where all the black is. And I really like the texture that it gave me. And then like I think I lifted it up and made all the splashes that way by holding it in the air and letting it drip down. And I really love this painting. Then we have a little dory fish. I don't actually love the background colors, but I think it could look really cool with a different color scheme. I love the fish itself. We have a vulture. I got a little bit creepy and dark here again on that one. And a blue-footed booby. This was voted by students. And when I watched the tutorial back to voiceover it, I actually really liked it without a lot of background detail. So if I am to redo this one again, I think I'd leave out all the brown rocks, maybe just like some blue for the water, but I think they really like took away some of the focal point, and I probably wouldn't go that intense for the feet. They're not actually like that punchy, but I think things were competing too much at this point that they kind of had to be. Got a little Tassie devil, another little Australian animal. So again, I'm really trying to be soft with the body, and I think I kind of achieved a nice balance here. I knew I wanted to have really harsh strokes for the fur on the head because it's quite thick, wiry fur, but I didn't feel like I had to go and do like excessive fixing up or like painting the whole body in the back there. It was nice to just let that kind of fade away. And then we've got a little martin, maybe. I mean, it could be a weasel or something else, or a ferret or a stoat. I wasn't actually sure after I painted it if I painted the right animal, but we're gonna go with it. And you know, I realized when doing this one that I messed up a little bit by putting too much texture on the animal itself. I was trying to replicate the frog that I showed you, the smooth blue poison dart frog with a really nice textured mossy rock, and I think I just missed that contrast. That animal was really smooth with a rough background or like thing that it was sitting on, so it worked. But this one I ended up making it like textured and textured, and I think that kind of just competes a little bit as well. And I think if I would you know, do this again or go back to this one, I'd just darken up the whole face. I don't know what I was quite doing there, but it seems like a little bit out of place. And sometimes, like I've said, things just don't translate well from a photo to a painting because you're not putting every single element into it. And even if you are, sometimes it just doesn't work. And then we've got our live stream. So throwback to the Easter Bunny, I wanted to paint a foil covered egg or bunny. And when I tell you the journey to get to this was hilarious. This is AI generated on Canva. I put in like 500 different prompts to get here because it did not understand what I want. I'm gonna like pop up some of the results I got. They are hilarious. They are disturbing. They are so funny. It took me so long to get something that I wanted and liked, but I absolutely adored painting this. It was a super fun challenge. Then we have some rays that we painted recently on stream. This was really cool as well. I did branch out and use different colors than normal. I used ultramarine blue for the water and Payne's Grey for the actual rays. They're from my handmade collection, so that's my electric sky and storm. We also painted some dog mouths earlier in the year. So this is my dog's mouth from the portrait that I showed you earlier, and this is a Dalmatian from a tutorial I have somewhere. It's not included in this one, but there was like, I did this challenge last year called Dogtober, and I'm still in the process of like going and doing all of those dogs that I painted really quickly into like actual tutorials. This one is in the academy already, but yeah, that is where that one came from. Then this is like one of my most recent fails to date. I wanted to paint elephants walking off into the distance, and I really did not like it. I was just like, what am I not getting? Like, me and loose paintings, we just have a hard time. And so I was like trying to practice them separately, and I'm like, they don't look like elephants. They literally look like nothing. So that is a work in progress for me. I will be revisiting that at some stage. Then we have a cute little ragdoll cat. I really like this one. I can't remember what exactly I was trying to achieve with this look. I feel like I was going for a specific technique, but now that I think about it, I have no idea what that technique was. Was I not trying to touch the edges of stuff maybe? I can't remember. but I think this one's super cute. Little spooked, but super cute. And then finally, we just have these little color experiments. So we did a few live streams where we were trying to find the best, air quotes, way to shade all the colors of the color wheel. So whether just to use it by itself and lift off the highlights, what would the analogous colors look like if you went either direction around the color wheel? What if you use the complementary color, neutral tint, or black? But that brings me to the end. You've seen pretty much all of my art collection, or especially watercolor collection. I hope this was an interesting insight into how things have progressed over the years, and I hope if you've been feeling stuck or like you are just not able to do something, you can take some inspiration from this. You really can. Anyone can do watercolor. Anyone can learn watercolor. And if you need help with that, you know where to find me. I'll catch you in the next one.